A few tattooed thugs arrived at the pool, and wanted to chase everyone out. They say in Korea, the more tattoos you have, the higher your status. Seeing the tattoos on their bodies, nobody around dared to speak up, but the man in the wheelchair paid no attention. The pool belongs to Chung. If you don't like it, get out. The thugs mocked. Already crippled but still wants to boss people around. As a result, the man's assistant stood up. Upon hearing the name Young Ki, the thugs immediately apologized and bowed politely. The man told the thugs they had 3 seconds to disappear from his sight, or he'd scrub off the tattoos from their bodies. Terrified, they fled the pool. The man's name is Young Ki. He's the most feared fighter under the crime boss, but he's got no real skills. Just drifts around all day. He even parks across 2 spaces. All day, he just hopes his stocks will go up, so he can take his younger brother on a trip. His brother hopes he'll do proper business. At this moment, someone came angrily to get his car, telling him to stop parking in 2 spots. He even bumped into his younger brother. Young Ki stepped up and kicked the car door, raising 2 fingers to poke the guy's eyes. He's already running late. After dropping his brother off at school, he rushes to work. His brother Dae-guk is stressed, looking at the stock prices going up and down. The two of them used 7 billion of the company's money to pursue their dream of getting rich. The boss told them to acquire a company, but they couldn't buy any. In today's shareholder meeting, they wonder if the boss will ask about it. At this moment, Chairman Bom-do drives up in a Rolls-Royce. His subordinate opens the car door. Bom-do, elegantly dressed, steps out, helping his subordinate adjust his tie. He doesn't want his subordinates to look like thugs. Young Ki and Dae-guk arrived late, rushing into the hall. They bowed to greet the director. Young Ki scolded his junior Da-ri for not greeting his seniors. Da-ri was so embarrassed he lost face. Bom-do told them to sit down quickly, to quickly develop the corporation. Bom-do wants to expand the subsidiaries under the corporation. Da-ri is put in charge of running a subsidiary. Young Ki was slightly stunned hearing this. Dae-guk snapped out of it when he heard clapping. Their 20 years of brotherhood were not spoken, but someone else was chosen for the job. Young Ki couldn't accept this. Chairman Bom-do raised his glass. Everyone stood up to congratulate the corporation. Furious, Young Ki stormed off to a nightclub. For 20 years they were like errand boys, and now they were being tossed aside. Dae-guk knew Young Ki was still angry, so he made an excuse to go to the bathroom. The hostess shared that the Pondo gang has recently been doing worse than the Chanda gang. Young Ki heard this and asked, "Who said that?" "I'm still here." The hostess said, "It was the Chanda gang next door." "Who said it?" Young Ki stormed out to the hallway, grabbed a guitar, and barged into their room. By this time, Dae-guk returned and couldn't find Young Ki. The hostess told him what had happened. He rushed out to the hallway. As Dae-guk entered, he saw 3 thugs beaten to a pulp by Young Ki. When Young Ki sobered up, he found himself locked up in the police station and sentenced to 2 years probation, along with 150 hours of community service. He was assigned to serve lawyer Jang Soo, the most famous in the area. Dae-guk picked up Young Ki and took him for street food. Fortunately, Chairman Bom-do knew the Chanda gang boss. Otherwise, Young Ki would have been in jail for 2 years. Young Ki wasn't concerned, only focused on eating. He asked Dae-guk about the stocks. When he heard the stock was rising, he excitedly said, "See, I told you I was right." Dae-guk thought for a moment and suggested they sell the stock, but Young Ki told him to wait until it hits 7 billion. "Once we hit that, we'll never have to worry again." As Young Ki walked home, he realized his car was gone from the parking lot. He came home and beat his brother up. "A car is a man's soul, and you dare sell it?" His brother explained that he had debts from school fees, rent, and compensation for Young Ki's mess. "If we didn't sell the car, what else would we pay with?" "Wake up, brother. When did you plan to get it together?" Young Ki removed his belt. "You need a proper upbringing." Afterward, he took a cab to his community service location. Someone was already waiting there, and led him to Jang Soo's room. The housekeeper knocked repeatedly, but no one answered. Young Ki pushed the door open. He greeted Jang Soo, who turned around, confused as to why Young Ki was there. The housekeeper explained this was a prison assigned community service. Jang Soo agreed to sign off on his hours, and told him to get lost. Young Ki took off his glasses and walked up, thanked him, and turned to leave. But the housekeeper stopped him. "If you refuse community service, you'll have to return to jail." The two argued back and forth in Jang Soo's room. At that moment, a mosquito landed on Jang Soo's face. Young Ki slapped it dead. Jang Soo was speechless. Young Ki curiously asked Jang Soo if his legs, paralyzed below, could still move. Then he played adult films for Jang Soo. Jang Soo protested fiercely, but his body wasn't under his control. Jang Soo's secretary told Young Ki to behave, or she'd report him. Then she turned. "I like Seoul girls the most." The next day, Bom-do told Young Ki to bring the company's records for review, and Dae-guk calmly responded to Bom-do. Bom-do waved and called Young Ki over. "The company is growing stronger every day. But what are you wearing? Take some money and buy a few suits." Young Ki thought for a moment, muttering to himself, "The chairman's talking about clothes with me again. How am I supposed to fight wearing a suit like that?" "Dae-guk, you should know. The 7 billion from the company is still out in the market. What are we supposed to show Bom-do? If things don't work out, we'll get back to principal." Young Ki reassured him. "I've got it covered." The two drank late into the night. The next day, Young Ki picked up the phone to get stock updates. Jang Soo overheard and asked, "Even gangsters know how to trade stocks?" Jang Soo used to be a lawyer for a stock company, but didn't offer Young Ki any advice. Another day passed, and Young Ki's phone rang again. Bad news reached his ears. He rushed to the stock trading floor. The scene was chaotic, and Dae-guk said, "This time we're done for." Bom-do called and asked for Trani to cover this up. They could only go to Danry's subsidiary, hoping he could lend them some money to cover the shortfall. Danry handed them the keys and told them to wash his car. Young Ki stood up and knocked over everything on the table. He took the keys and went to the car, unzipped his pants and peed on it. Danry felt something was off, and sent his subordinates to investigate their funds. The two of them kept their heads down, avoiding Bondu's calls. At this moment, Jiang Su's secretary reminded Young Ki not to be late or leave early. He got angry and threw his phone away. Just then, a man came looking for Jiang Su, asking him to transfer his business rights. He may have collapsed, but the law firm still needs to keep running. Young Ki barged in, sat down with a soda. The man asked, "Don't you see we're talking here?" Young Ki told him to keep talking. The man walked over to him, but Young Ki stood up. The man backed off without any further attitude, and warned Jiang Su, "Don't go looking for a third company." Jiang Su told Young Ki to bring the documents for him to stamp. After hearing this, Young Ki grabbed the man and threw him out. The secretary brought in Jiang Su's stone statue. Jiang Su wasn't pleased. "It doesn't look like me at all." The secretary said she'd have it fixed immediately. Young Ki entered and greeted the secretary. Looking at the statue, unable to contain his laughter, he accidentally knocked the statue to the ground. It was broken when he picked it up. Young Ki asked Jiang Su, "How much did you donate to get this statue?" Since the other party didn't respond, Young Ki kept nagging. "You're about to die, but you still have so much money. Lend me 7 billion. I'll make a big score, okay?" Jiang Su didn't bother to respond. Meanwhile, he spent his days dealing with trivial matters. Jiang Su accidentally spilled water, and told him to wipe it up. Seeing that he wasn't interested, he advised him to sell his stocks quickly. "If you keep holding on, they'll turn into worthless paper." Young Ki looked at Jiang Su, thinking he was talking nonsense. Jiang Su had once worked as a lawyer for that stock company. The CEO was a hypocrite. Shocked, Young Ki asked, "Why are you telling me this now?" Jiang Su advised him, "From now on, don't let your life affect others. I probably won't make it past next month." Angry, Young Ki replied, "So you want me to die with you?" The two of them went out for a walk, and Jiang Su agreed with Young Ki. "After I die, I'll leave you some compensation money. The requirement is simple. Just do what I ask." Before I die, Young Ki asked, "You want me to inherit it?" But what he really wanted to know was how much compensation there would be. Jiang Su calmly said, "At least 12 billion, and at most 27 billion. Hearing this, Young Ki was stunned. "Why so much? If I die naturally, it's 12 billion. If I die unexpectedly, it's 27 billion. To verify if what Jiang Su said was true, Dae Guk investigated. Turns out, Jiang Su had once been a prosecutor at the Seoul prosecutor's office. Then he returned to Busan to open his own law firm, making a yearly profit of 50 billion. Every case he took on, even murder cases, could be resolved. He was a hidden tycoon. Upon hearing this, they marveled. Isn't he the benefactor sent by heaven? With his insurance money, we won't have to worry about anything." The next day, Young Ki placed a document on the table. The secretary didn't understand. She asked Jiang Su, "Why are you giving him an inheritance? Was he threatened?" Jiang Su replied, "I made my decision. There's nothing to worry about. Let me leave this world in peace." The two of them made a long list of things to do. Young Ki took Jiang Su to a baseball game, but they ended up in the opposing team's section. Every time Jiang Su cheered, people around them gave them dirty looks. Chong Ki had to cover Jiang Su's mouth. After the game, the two went to the pool. Since Jiang Su was paralyzed, he could only watch Young Ki play in the water. "Isn't your secretary unmarried?" "I'm still single, you know." Before Jiang Su could reply, a few thugs barged in, just like the scene from the beginning. Seeing that Jiang Su was intrigued by tattoos, Young Ki took him to a tattoo shop. When they returned to the treatment center, the doctor was confused, but Jiang Su laughed heartily. "This is designed for the top position." The next day, the secretary entered Jiang Su's room, only to find it empty. Turns out the two had gone out again. Young Ki took Jiang Su to the supermarket, put him in a shopping cart, and Jiang Su didn't mind at all. He was enjoying things he'd never dared to do. Young Ki discussed with him, "After you complete the things you want to do, you can pick a knife and die unexpectedly. So I can get 27 billion. Just dying naturally and getting 12 billion isn't enough." Jiang Su looked at Young Ki and said, "Unless you kill me." The two laughed. Laughing, they stuck together wherever they went. Jiang Su gradually got used to living life with Young Ki. Young Ki even peeled off logos from cars on the street and stuck them onto Jiang Su's wheelchair. That evening, Young Ki took Jiang Su to a nightclub. Jiang Su told him not to stray from the plan, but Young Ki was having too much fun. At the same time, Bondu visited his own nightclub to check things. He discovered that the service girls were low quality. Customers were causing a ruckus, and Bondu asked, "Where's Young Ki?" The manager responded that he hadn't shown up recently. Meanwhile, Young Ki was sitting with Jiang Su, drinking by the Chong River. Young Ki remembered his painful childhood. His mother died of a brain hemorrhage, and there was no money for a funeral. He had no choice but to leave her body in the desolate wilderness. Jiang Su listened and drank with him. Everyone has a past. Jiang Su returned home, looked at a picture of a man, and couldn't sleep as he reflected on the past. The next morning, Bondu called Young Ki to his office. Bondu was scratching a lottery ticket. He handed one to Young Ki to try. "If you don't win, you'll be punished." Young Ki thought Bondu was joking, but when he saw the seriousness on his face, he started to get goosebumps. He scratched the lottery ticket with a coin, and even though he won, he didn't feel any joy. Bondu warned Young Ki, "Don't mess with other people's livelihoods. If you get caught, you better hope to survive." Young Ki understood Bondu's message, so he turned around and went to find Jiang Su, asking, "Can you finish the task within half a month? I've got company business to handle." To speed things up, Young Ki bought an old car. Jiang Su looked at the car and said it was worse than his wheelchair. So, Young Ki had to spend money to rent a Ferrari, and took Jiang Su out of the treatment center. They sat by the river, listening to music, enjoying the fresh air. Jiang Su recalled he had a favorite car once, but even after searching among car collectors, he couldn't find it. Young Ki offered Jiang Su a cigarette, telling him to take a puff. Young Ki said, "Why don't you drive home?" But, seeing that Jiang Su was paralyzed, Young Ki suddenly had an idea. He decided to rent a tow truck to bring the car back home. Looking at the list of things to do, it was almost complete. Then he noticed the picture of a man, and asked, "Who is this?" Jiang Su replied, "It's someone I need to see before I die." As soon as he said this, Jiang Su coughed up blood. Young Ki rushed to call the doctor, then called Dae Guk to help find the person in the picture. At that moment, the secretary arrived, and said that Jiang Su was suffering from acute pneumonia. "What the hell are you doing? How can you still show your face here? For some insurance money, you do anything?" Angry, Young Ki retorted, "So what if I take him down to the underworld? Do I get a Nobel Prize for collecting this money? Let's stop this act of false nobility." Young Ki threw a bottle, shattering it, and stormed out. That night, Jiang Su lay in bed thinking about the past. A female student had been raped by a dentist during an exam. The dentist's father was the chairman of a corporation, and used his money and power to hire Jiang Su for defense. They twisted the truth, and the judge declared the dentist innocent. The father of the female student, a taxi driver, couldn't accept this outcome. Jiang Su had shamelessly defended the criminal, blatantly. Enraged, the father rammed his car into Jiang Su's. His car flipped and fell off a cliff, leaving Jiang Su paralyzed. Unfortunately, his wife and daughter, who were sitting in the backseat, didn't survive. When Young Ki learned the truth, he grabbed the file of the case from back then, went to the nursing home to confront Jiang Su, and asked him, "How do you want to kill that driver? Should we just kill him or throw him into the sea for the fish to eat? You have a daughter too, and yet you defended a criminal." Jiang Su cut him off, saying, "I'm just a person. Our law office is merely a tool. Even if we didn't do it, someone else would. You're just a thug. Do your job properly." Young Ki angrily said to Jiang Su, "If you pay me 10 billion won, tomorrow I'll make that driver disappear." After saying this, he left. The next day, he sat alone in the forest, refusing to leave. That evening, Jiang Su's secretary found Young Ki. The two went to a cafe. The secretary apologized to Jiang Su, saying his presence had brought a lot of joy to Jiang Su. She came, hoping that Young Ki could accompany Jiang Su on his final journey. The next day, Young Ki went to see Jiang Su. Jiang Su opened up about a long buried story, hoping that Young Ki could find the driver. He wanted to apologize to him in person. Early the next morning, Young Ki went to the dock to find the driver. Jiang Su formally apologized to the driver, whose hair had turned gray, and asked about his daughter's condition. Seeing that the driver remained silent, Jiang Su said he had obtained some money to compensate his daughter. He could use it for tuition, or to help her buy a house when she married. The driver coldly looked at Jiang Su and said, "I don't need it. My daughter died during my first year in prison. Now you want me to accept money and forget everything? That dirty money won't bring my daughter back." Jiang Su never expected this outcome. Though he was guilty, the driver had also made mistakes. Now that his daughter had passed away, Jiang Su couldn't forgive himself. If he hadn't defended the criminal back then, another lawyer would have. The two men, overwhelmed with grief, broke down in tears. Seeing them like that, Young Ki took out his phone to call Dae Guk to track down that dentist. Once he knew the dentist's location, Young Ki barged in without a word and beat him up. After dealing with the dentist, Young Ki and Jiang Su went to pick out an urn. Together, they went up the mountain to look at the city at night. "How is everything? Still incomplete?" Young Ki asked, confused. "How can this reunion of three be fulfilled?" Jiang Su said, "You can't help with this one. I hope that in the end, I can reunite with my wife and daughter." As they discussed the end of their task, Jiang Su told him to stay healthy. Though feeling conflicted, Young Ki left. Suddenly, he got a call. He went to the company, and his underlings greeted him continuously. Entering the office, he saw Dae Guk kneeling in the middle of the room. Bom Do accused Dae Guk of embezzling money from the subsidiary. Young Ki was about to speak up, but Dae Guk stood up and punched him, telling him to shut up. "What kind of act are you putting on?" The underlings restrained Dae Guk, while Danri smiled wickedly and held Dae Guk's hand before cutting off his fingers. Young Ki stepped in, saying, "I'll return the money. Do you even know how much it is?" Young Ki replied, 20 billion, it's no problem. Bom Do gave him 3 days. Young Ki helped Dae Guk out of there. They rushed to the hospital. For the sake of his brother and himself, Young Ki put on a mask and went to the nursing home. When he opened the door, he found Jiang Su sitting by the window. He told him to come with him for one last trip. Jiang Su, having once been a prosecutor, said that dying at the hands of gangsters would be humiliating. The two of them went to the sea. Young Ki said to him, "I can't just stand by and watch my brother die. I'm the one who made this plan. I can't let my brother face this alone." Jiang Su told him to calm down, and then asked to be pushed into the sea. Young Ki cried out loudly and pushed the wheelchair hard into the water. At the same time, Danri was talking to Bom Do, urging him to act decisively. There's no way Young Ki can get that much money. Bom Do hit Danri on the head with a cardboard box, saying, "Do you think you're the same age as Young Ki?" calling him by name. Meanwhile, Young Ki lay on the beach. Jiang Su asked, "What are you doing? Didn't you say you could only live after I die?" While speaking, "No need to thank me. Just pull him out, he's alive, until it's time to die." They saw a shopping cart by the road. Young Ki pushed Jiang Su back to the nursing home. The two grown men laughed and yelled like children along the way. 3 days later, Bom Do didn't actively seek out Young Ki, so he went to the company alone. At the front entrance, An underling looked down on him. Young Ki put down his umbrella and stared at the underling. At that moment, Bomdu and Danri were entertaining important guests. Suddenly, there was a loud crash. An underling was kicked and sent flying inside. Young Ki walked straight toward Bomdu, but Danri blocked his way. Why do you always ruin my good plans? Hearing this, Young Ki punched Danri. If Bomdu didn't step in, the situation would only escalate. Bomdu understood Young Ki's temper well. He ordered his men to escort the guests to the main hall, and they locked the meeting room doors. The money you and Dae-guk took is 7 billion. Earlier, I promised to buy you a house. Let's count that as 5 billion. The rest, take it out of me as payment. After being beaten senseless by Bomdu, he told them, don't ever show your face in front of me again. Danri, furious upon hearing this, pulled out a knife and stabbed Young Ki several times. Just as Young Ki was about to collapse, Bomdu knocked Danri out cold, warning him that 7 billion cost you your leg. Consider it settled. Don't let me see either of you again. Thank you, boss. After thanking the boss and leaving, Dae-guk helped a bleeding Young Ki out of there. Young Ki asked Dae-guk, do you think we can still make a fortune? Dae-guk told Young Ki, hold on just a little longer. We're almost there. But instead of going to the hospital, Young Ki went to find Jiang Su. Afraid that Jiang Su might not make it, he couldn't let him miss his final wish. He pushed his wheelchair to the funeral hall, carried him on his back for the last time, and spoke to the portrait of Jiang Su's wife. Sister-in-law is really beautiful. Your brother is here. You're finally reunited. Young Ki, in his own way, helped their family reunite. Jiang Su had never been to this place, afraid of remembering the past. And that concludes the story of Asterisk Man of Men. What do you think about this movie? Did you enjoy it? If yes, leave a comment with number 1. If you thought it was just okay, comment with number 2. Thanks for watching and following along. Goodbye and see you next time.